What's your you don't see that everyday story. I saw a dude absolutely bombing a hill on a skateboard. Joints in hand. And a crossbow on his back. Not like a little one. Like a medieval reenactment crossbow used for storming the gates of Helm's Deep. An ambulance ran over a pedestrian while on the way to a medical emergency. So they picked up the pedestrian they just ran over and came back to the hospital. Fortunately both emergencies turned out okay. On vacation in London, my wife and I were waiting for a train in a tube station. 2 trains arrived at the station before ours showed up. As a native New Yorker, I was comforted to see that pigeons live in subway stations everywhere. The first train pulls into the station and the doors open. As people enter and exit the train, one pigeon flutters down from the ceiling, lands on the platform and calmly walks onto the train like he's off to work or something. My wife and I laugh about this a little as the doors closed and the train pulls away from the station. The second train pulls into the station. The doors open. And people shuffle out. After a moment a different pigeon walks out of this train and then flutters up to spot vacated by the first pigeon. Anyway. Seems like London pigeons have the tube pretty much figured out. Today I was coming upstairs after eating quesadillas with my family and watching Frasier. And my 90 pounds dog suddenly scrambles up the last 3 steps. I saw a flash of fur and I'm like, WTF? A rabbit in my house? I see there's a strange small dog in my house. Then there's yelping. Then there's another small dog. My big puppy chases the out of them in my living room as they dash for the door. Yelping. With my dog tailing them down the iron block. Yeah. Turns out as I was cooking the quesadillas, I opened the back door a little to let my dog out to pee and forgot the door was open. These 2 little scoundrels must have been like, hey, it smells good in this house. Let's go inside. I helped a German guy at CVS jump his car and to thank me he gave me a fancy bottle of shampoo. A big ass old ceramic tub flew off a flatbed truck and exploded into a million pieces on the interstate. Worked as a waiter and after we finished one night a drunk man was walking down the street. One of my co-workers recognized him and asked if he was the German opera singer doing a show in the city. He answered yes and asked if we would like to hear him sing. So he gave us a 3-minute private concert in the middle of the night drunk of his ass. While jogging slowly up a steep hill, I got cheered on by the driver of the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. You're not a loser. You're a wiener. I was driving home one day and as I entered my neighborhood, I saw a turkey in mid-flight, about 15 feet in the air, glide across the road and face first into the side of a house. It plopped down on the ground and just as quickly hightailed it around the corner and out of sight. I was walking through my neighborhood with a couple friends one morning and a couple women drive up to us and ask if we have seen their horse. We were confused and told them no sorry and they drove away, but literally 30 seconds later a horse runs out of the woods about 10 feet in front of us and runs past us down the street. A bride in her wedding gown running in the train station being chased by 2 women holding the train of her dress. I had a random woman in a glittery wedding dress walk up to me at 4 in the morning holding a ferret and ask me to take care of it. I couldn't say no to that. So Lady Gompers the ferret was my bestie for years until she passed. I once saw a squirrel carrying an entire pomegranate around a cemetery. I once took the channel from London to Paris. First time ever doing so. Or even being in France for that matter. As I was walking through the station a dude ran up to me and started quacking like a duck. I still wonder how that dude is doing 2 years later. Watched a guy on a quad drop his hat. Look back and decide to leave it behind. About 2 minutes later, some guy in a tan car drives up. Swerves around it. Stops. Leans out of the car. Picks up the hat. Puts it on and then just drives away like nothing happened. Neutering a dog the other day. He appeared to be a cryptorchid, that is, 1 normal testicle. And 1 not descended. Retained somewhere in the abdomen. Well, we can still neuter these, in fact. It's even more important to do so, since the retained one can later develop cancer if left behind. So, into the abdomen I went, looking for that retained testicle, which I was expecting to find somewhere between the kidney and inguinal ring. Found the uterus. At around 3 AM, I saw a man rollerblading through the lobby of the Ritz-Carlton. I could not believe the hotel staff were just letting him get away with this, but no one even attempted to stop him. I ended up getting on the elevator behind him. The man was Jim Carrey. Was in the tribunal talking to a friend. The new prosecutor passes by us wearing shorts and flip-flops with a fully dressed for court upper body. "Morning, Your Honor," the bastard says as if nothing is happening. In shock, I keep looking at him as he strolls across the lobby. Preface: I live in the meth valley of the Midwest, so this isn't surprising. I was in Walmart and I saw this older woman, 65 years old, and she didn't have a shirt or a bra on. Instead, she took her very stretchy pants and lifted them up above her very saggy breasts, forming a sort of a jumper romper, and just went on her way. When I was working nights on security, I saw 2 cats getting chased by a rat. I questioned life for a brief moment. Edit. Thank you to everybody who upvoted this and gifted awards. I've never seen my phone blow up so much. I worked at a high-functioning casino as a cocktail server a few years back. This lady came up to me and asked me if I wanted to see something cool. Me not knowing what to expect says sure, why not? This woman proceeds to pull a purple rag out of her bra and begin to unfold it. I start to hear little chirps coming from the rag. This woman pulled a baby chicken out of her bra in the middle of a casino and let me pet it. She then folded the rag back up, stuffed the baby chicken back in her bra, and told me not to tell anyone. A coyote pup came out of the arroyo and followed me and my dog around while we were walking. They didn't become friends or have any wondrous adventures or anything. Heads up for folks reading this. Coyote pups will do this to lure animals away and the pack will attack and kill them. Do not let your animals play with coyote pups. Edit. Folks are upset because my terminology is poor. The reality of the situation is probably closer to the pup actually playing and making friends. Bringing the friend home to meet family. And the coyote family is hungry and doesn't need friends, so kills the pet. There is probably no malice aforethought on the part of the cub. The overall outcome is the same, however. So don't let your pets play with coyote pups. When we saw a pickup truck pull a boat down a city street without a trailer. Lots of sparks. Though, I still wonder about that. My wife and I were on the loop around Atlanta in bumper to bumper traffic. There was a Dodge Dually pulling a flatbed trailer in the lane next to us. And on the other side of him was an S10 Blazer, who apparently wanted to get in behind the truck. As soon as the truck was past the Blazer, he started to change lanes. But when he noticed the trailer, he swerved back into his own lane. But he overcorrected. He got that Blazer up on 2 wheels like at a stunt show. I could see the drive shaft spinning. He held it long enough for me to turn to my wife, tap her on the arm, and say, "Look at that." She saw it. He set it back down and just kept driving. I was like, are we in a movie? I used to work next door to a mini golf course, and the window of our drive-through looked out over the golf course. In the parking lot of a concert in the 80s, a guy with a big blonde fro stripped down and simulated intercourse with the windshield of his Chevelle. Then he dismounted and strutted around like a chicken. Then, more windshield coitus. Then, chicken, windshield, chicken windshield, chicken, ambulance. Looking out my 3rd-story dorm room window and watching the contents of the 4th floor lounge fly past. I'm afraid that, depending on the college or university, that may be a daily occurrence in some dorms. This reminds me of an old story from my college where a student threw a burning mattress out his dorm window. When campus security found him, they asked him why he threw a burning mattress out the window. To which he responded, "Because it was on fire." I just shared the longer version of this story earlier today. But to summarize. A person getting arrested while wearing an inmate costume. Go to dress for the job position you want, I guess. I saw a wedding being held in a parking lot. Instead of rings they had gold spike bracelets and the bride had a YOLO tramp stamp gleaming above her jean shorts. Our tiny kitten had stolen a slice of pepperoni pizza and was hissing and snarling and fighting off 2 adult dogs and an adult cat. Nobody was getting that slice of pizza from him. Some guy cut me off with a trailer on a road with a speed limit of 35. A few minutes later I happened to pull into the same gas station as him. I try my best not look at him. I don't want to start anything. I hear, "Hey." I make a beeline for the gas station door. Then I hear a whistle coming from the direction where he was. Still trying to ignore him. I finally turn around when he comes jogging up to me. Rough looking fella says, "Sorry for cutting you off back there. I was low on gas. I drive for a living and come across a-holes daily." So this guy apologizing threw me off. I said no worries and thanked him for apologizing and we went our separate way. TLDR. A-hole driver cuts me off and then apologizes to me in public. Trail riding up in a fairly isolated part of north central Washington state when 3 emus ran out of the trees. Horses were not impressed. Those birds lived up there for several years menacing anyone who came around. Riding Scepter out of Center City, Philly, New Year's Eve. I watched a wasted college-age dude board the train with a gigantic bottle of champagne and then repeatedly puke into it. Not sure if there was champagne still in it, but the bottle was like 2 feet tall. I saw a car that instead of paint was covered in short brown fur. I walked into my backyard and I found a chicken. The strange part was that my backyard is completely fenced off with no gaps that chicken could have snuck through. So where did this chicken come from? And how did it get in my backyard? Well, I got the latter answer when I spooked it. It ran towards the chain link fence at the rear of the yard, grabbed a link with its beak, and then proceeded to pull itself up. It locked in first 1 foot, then the other, and then raised its beak to repeat the process until it had scaled the fence completely and hopped down, wings blasting to slow its descent. That thing was a fast climber. The squirrels should have taken notes. As for the former answer, it turns out my neighbor was raising chickens, and this one ran away when coyotes raided her cooperative. A hot air balloon landed on my street, 2 houses away from mine. That was a couple of years ago now, but it was certainly interesting. Found out today that my grandpa was a boy when the historic tornado of 1939 hit Anoka. MN. He was trying to find his brother and was pulled into the armory by a stranger and taken into the basement moments before the roof was blown off. Found his brother in the basement and was instructed by brother to go straight home. On the way home, he came across a woman who had been beheaded from the tornado. He then saw a man on the ground who had been clutching something. He was too scared to see if he was alive and just ran home. His other brother was in a movie theater, and it somehow didn't lose power or anything during the tornado. The movie kept playing. So older brother left the movie theater clueless to the tornado to see basically the entire town destroyed. Watched a horse kill a rattlesnake once. Alternated between stomping it with hooves and picking it up to whip it around with its mouth. This was probably someone else's. You don't see that every day, but this one day was the hottest recorded in the city. I was walking down a secluded trail but had to stop at a bench just to cool down. Then this really tall black guy was sitting in a motorized chair with a foot cast. He was really chill since he was smoking a joint and asked if I wanted a lift, so I sat on one of the armrests and away we go. It was a short ride, but he gave me a hit of his joint and figured, why not? This has to be the most bizarre situation I've ever been in. We passed an old lady, then it hit me. Like, have you know? We're in the most affluent part of the city and a black and brown guy are cruising through this scenic path smoking a joint on a motorized chair. Just your average day in the city or something. This literally happened today. My husband and I were at stop sign and guy comes out of nowhere on a bicycle. Once in high school I went into the bathroom to see a kid crying outside a stall that had a massive 8-inch long, black as the night, peanut spiked turd bobbing in the toilet. A woman at the 7/11 was trying to put hot water on a cup of instant ramen. Accidentally put coffee. Accidentally. Woman just discovered a new law that college students everywhere will adopt. A few years ago, while visiting family in the south of Spain, I live in the States, I was out at a bar with my cousin. His girlfriend's family owned the bar, and it was small but packed. I went upstairs to the only bathroom to go pee, opened the unlocked door and walked in on a FFM threesome in full swing. Ass and tits and everything mayo. Immediately tried to cover my eyes while backing out the door and yelling "Lo siento. Lo siento." My cousin, his girlfriend, and her mom ran up and promptly removed them. But I had zero desire to touch anything in the bathroom after that LMAO. This was also the first night I ever tried absinthe, and skinny dipped in the Mediterranean for the first time. Was a solid night. A grown man wearing a shirt, socks and shoes and an adult diaper, no pants, carefully looking through each aisle at the grocery store. I have a farm. I have ducks on one side and pigs on the other. One of my male ducks was awfully RP of the females, so we put him over with the pet pigs. He could easily leave if he wanted, but he chooses to stay. He can be seen lying on top of his beloved potbelly friend, nibbling his ear and making sweet love while my poor potbelly piggy boy just lays on his side in the sun without a care in the world. Edit. Or win award. Thank you. Edit 2. I added a pic on my profile temporarily. A barefoot backpacker in nothing but shorts, playing a saxophone while walking through a busy car park. I work at a dry cleaners. A college kid walked in with a pair of pants absolutely drenched in blood. I tell him those are a biohazard, and you can't get that much blood out of something. I asked him, out of curiosity, why so much blood? He says I cut my hands, while displaying his untouched palms as proof. He says he has another item he'd like me to look at outside. Okay. Why not? I walk outside, and he presents a football jacket saturated in vomit. I refused it again, and told him to cold wash it. Dry cleaning wouldn't help. Sent him on his way. To this day, while I have theories, I don't know where all that blood came from. Once saw a man proceed to scratch his ass crack inside of his pants, smell his hand and then eat a sandwich with the same hand on public transportation. That was certainly interesting. I work security on the side. Watched a lady itch her junk, then reach back and scratch in a crack. She then sniffed her fingers, and then licked them. One of the nastiest goddamn things I've ever watched. Saw a roadrunner and a coyote along the same stretch of highway. I work security on the side. I feel like I could give you a different answer every so often. Watched a guy the other day going through boxes of men's shoes and sniffing them, looking for ones with a foot scent. When he found them, he'd get a little fidgety. Went to the back of the department with a few boxes and was looking around heavily. But there was a family and a bunch of kids around, and he left abruptly. No joke. The way he was acting and how he was positioning things. He was about to a pair of Nikes. It was some wild. Watched a guy bust out of the store one time with about $1,300 in clothes and right into the side of his getaway vehicle, which then ran him the over. Not ashamed to say I laughed my ass off. He lived. Peopleting. Masturbating. Domestic violence. Robberies. Marriage proposal from a cracked out junkie. Accidents. I've seen some. Driving home a few years ago stuck in slow moving traffic on the M42 motorway coming around Birmingham. Probably doing about 20-30 mph on my side. Looked to my right at the other side of the motorway. Saw a lad running down the hard shoulder. Thought that's a little weird. Looked behind him to see his car on fire rolling after him. Car rolled all the way across 3 carriageways of the southbound side and hit the central barrier about 4 cars behind me. Other driving home story on the M5. Passed a truck that looked like Optimus Prime. Thought cool, someone's bought an American style truck and done a custom paint job. Then few cars in front I passed Bumblebee. And then past the American police car transformer. Driving home one day down our old suburban Atlanta street of ranch style homes. My mom and I saw a full ass peacock just walking down the middle of the road. Whole family in our way to brunch for Father's Day with Grandpa. Mom points out 2 groundhogs at stoplight. They are start bumping uglies as soon as everyone turns and looks. Grandpa thought it was the funniest thing ever. I was going to go canoeing with a friend and shortly after getting on the freeway I see the rope holding the canoe down start fraying. I incorrectly respond by slamming on my brakes, which severs both front and back rope and shoots the canoe into the grassy median going 80. The canoe isn't losing speed and is heading into oncoming traffic. It goes down into a low spot near the shoulder of the road where we can't see. We run across the median only to find the canoe sticking out of the side of a large appliance-sized box inches from the first lane. We pull the canoe out and check the box and it's just a sealed box of packing peanuts. I have no idea what the chances were of that happening, but it could have ended much worse without that box magically being there. A guy in his mid-20s rolling down the street on a trike with a boombox on his shoulder blasting EDM. This was 2018. There's someone in a few towns over from me that drives a white lifted van. A whole ass van with probably one of the biggest lifts I've ever seen in person. Tire flying off the truck in front of you. Aiming in your direction. Hits a small pothole, bounces high, misses you entirely. Thank goodness. Must have had a horse show up my ass that day. My very first day in New York City. I arrived at Newark and was getting a combination of bus train to Penn Station. A family came running behind us towards the platform. A crazed redhead screaming. A voice behind her yelled, "Mindy. Mindy. You don't know where you're going." Then another voice yelled, "Where's Mindy going?" And Mindy finally replied, "There's only one train." During the bus ride portion of the journey I saw police clearing up a crime scene of what looked like a mob hit. Chalk outlines. Bullet casings. Body bags. Crime scene tape. Although I am led to believe this can be seen every day. Finally in Times Square a man approached me. Put his hands on my shoulders and asked, "Excuse me sir. Are you Jesus Christ? What a city. Hey." Saw some dude get chased down a street in his boxers with some woman with curls in her hair and an evening robe. Did the dude's boxers have large cartoon hearts on them? And was the lady brandishing a rolling pin as she chased the dude? Yesterday. Driving home. Saw 3 lads who looked like they were aged about 10 walking along the pavement. 2 of them were in hysterics at their mate, who was strolling along wearing jeans, a t-shirt and a massive bra that they had clearly just found in a bin. I'll be honest. I'm 4 times their age and I laughed too. I was getting on the freeway on my motorcycle and a truck ahead of me drove over a 4x8 sheet of plywood. The wind from the truck sucked the piece of wood up in the air and it came flying at me. The corner of the wood sheet hit my gas tank and the whole piece bounced over my head. There is a deer in my town that stabbed someone with their antler in a moving car. Killed them. Survived. Got shot with a tranq dart. Lived. It was spotted again. Was at a hotel front desk in Dallas on a business trip. Turned around and saw a group of people in mascot costumes and I screamed. Turned out it was a furry convention which I had to Google as never heard of it before. Then saw one in full costume by the pool sunbathing. On my way home from class I got stuck in traffic and as it moved forward I looked to the side and an armored vehicle had been flipped on its side open with money bags poured out and whatever else was in there. There were 4 cop cars, a flipped over semi-truck, an ambulance, and multiple people in military uniforms, and to this day I always make up stories in my head of how any of it happened. My best story of how it happened was a hillbilly heist that went horribly wrong. Lived in Florida.